Auto News Hour, Joe and Jason on a Tuesday. I love the short weeks because two things. Number one, that's one less day of shows you got to do. Number two, you tend to have to be retrained. After 3 days off in a row, I'm sure we'll have some issues, but we'll get on it. We'll make it all right. I hope you had a great Labor Day weekend. I was able to get out on the golf course a couple of times. I'm already upset because Labor Day, at least in my little world, just means that's the weekend, September 1st, essentially. Prices at the golf courses go up here, so it's not a great thing. Golf's already way too expensive, like everything else. I mean, it's like the grocery store. You used to, back in the day in the summertime when it was 1,000,000 degrees outside, you could play around the golf for $25-$30. Well, now that's $50, and now the prices are up almost. And I don't play anywhere expensive, but $80. And wait till the snowbirds get back, right? It'll be $100+. So I guess the long and the short of it, Labor Day for me, Jason, means I'm just going to play a little less golf because I'm not paying that.
Yeah, I don't play a lot of golf. And, Jack, a little echo there. So I'm there we go.
You have an echo? Okay, I don't.
I'm good. Like you said, we're testing a few things out. But no, I don't play golf, so I don't have that expense. I've had friends that play. I just never got into it. But it's interesting to hear. All the years that you've been on the air, and you talk about when your golf seasons, how. It's reverse of here. When it's hot, nobody wants to go out. But in Colorado, when it gets warm, everyone gets out. And you got the opposite schedule. So it's so funny how the pricing going into the colder months. That's when the pricing goes up.
Better, the pricing goes way up. Yeah, exactly. So, but anyway, I hope all of you had a fantastic weekend. We're able to spend some time with people that you care about. We got a lot of things happening, a lot of things to talk about. We're closing in on a Fed meeting. I want to say it's next week. I'll get you the exact. It's either next Wednesday or the Wednesday after. It's coming. We had Fed governors out talking. One of the more hawkish members of the Federal Reserve, Christopher Waller, was out today. And again, here's the funny part. This is now hawkish. Ready for this? Well, I know we should raise rates. And inflation's been out of control. And we've been fooled more than one time. But we're going to be very careful. Waller kind of saying that, hey, I'm okay with a pause. I'm okay with taking a month off. And maybe if we're lucky, we only have to raise rates one more time. And I really think, Jason, is that Waller's way of saying, hey, the next rate hike will be the rate hike that breaks it? I don't know, but I kind of got that feeling when I was listening to him talk today.
Yeah, it sure seems like we still have two paths where it sure looks like everything's finally breaking down so they can stop raising the rates, but then there just seems to be this question of inflation that kind of keeps rate hikes like in the conversation. But other than the inflation and not the unknown question of how bad inflation is going to be, it's the rate hikes are done. I mean, I just saw an article that 2,927 bank franchises closed in 2021. They came out with that number from 2021. 2,900 actual buildings that have banks in them closed down in 2021, which that means the 2022 and 2023. We saw what happened this year, right, Joe? So I know that J.P. Morgan, I think they're going to close like a quarter of all the First Republic branches. They just bought that.
All the major banks, really most of the banks, they're all shutting branches. Listen, branches are going away. Banks are going away. I don't, whatever. If you want to be in denial, I guess, go ahead. Sure. If you haven't figured it out yet, right, these branches are going away. It's going to be a situation where, hey, we only need a couple going forward. We don't need 4,000 banks. Janet Yellen, you heard her talk about, well, gosh, over there in Europe, England's only got 300 banks, right? France only got 300 banks. Kind of putting a number, right? Kind of putting a number. Hey, maybe we need, 300. Oh, you know what? We're America. So, we always, we do things bigger, right? We always eat bigger food portions. So maybe we'll have 500, 5 or 600 banks, right? We're not going to have 4,000. And then the banks that you have, the actual physical locations, they are shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, and people in small towns, they're really going to struggle, right?
Yep.
Their problem. I think what you'll see happening is you'll get a cluster of small towns. Maybe there's going to be 8 towns within 100 miles, and all of you will have to drive to one. Right? Hey, you're all going to have to make, if you got to, oh my gosh, I actually got to go see somebody. Yeah, be prepared to drive. This is an ongoing trend of getting rid of branches. Why do you think that is? Well, the answer is really simple. 2 things. Number one, hey, we don't want people coming to the bank anymore, right? Do it online, right? Let's go digital. And then, of course, number 2, right, it's training. It's simply training the people to just get used to, I don't go to the bank anymore, because that's really what the future is going to hold. Speaking of the immediate future, news out of Saudi Arabia today has oil prices skyrocketing again, and then the national debt. As we get ready, it's the last month of the fiscal year. How bad is it? We'll talk about both. Eight 951 0592. Joe and Jason, Patriot Radio News Hour on this Tuesday. A quick look in here. We got the Dow and the S&P down today. The Nasdaq's up a few points. Gold is down about $9 today. Silver's down 15 cents as crude oil is surging $87. Brent crude at 90. We'll tell you why here in a minute. But when we're sitting here, getting ready for another Fed meeting, getting ready for really looking at jobs and the slowdown there, and full-time jobs going away, only part-time jobs now seemingly available. Jason, it is precarious times right now as the boom and bust cycle, right? We're preparing for the next bust cycle. You need to be diversified. You need to have that protection. Obviously, gold and silver is part of it. But if you're sitting in and you got a couple $100,000 sitting in a bank account and you've been doing this month after month, year after year, I'm telling you right now, you're going to regret it when it all goes to the digital side. You got to look for alternatives, and the best of the best out there. Companies like YRefi, up to 10.25% return. It's fixed. What does fixed mean? What do you mean it's fixed? Doesn't change. It's the same month after month after month after month. But what if the stock market crashes? It's the same. What if housing crashes? It's the same. What if all these small and medium-sized businesses can't refinance their debt next year? It's the same. What happens if the government goes 3, 4, 5 trillion into debt? It's the same. And again, when you talk about having your money out of these banks, this is one of the ways to do it. Check them out. InvestYRefi.com. That's the word invest, the letter Y, REFY.com. Or just call them 888-YRefi24. And Jason, I think the big news of the day, kind of weird when you think about it, the reason why gold's down a little bit today. Saudi Arabia has come out. Last week we told you about Russia and their oil cuts. Saudi Arabia today, they one-upped everybody and said, you know what, we're cutting 1 million barrels, and we're going to cut it for the rest of the year. And, of course, now, listen, Saudi Arabia cut these 1 million barrels last month, but, Jason, they came out today and said, hey, guess what? that's going to be for the whole rest of the year. And, oh, by the way, we're not saying that we might not cut more oil before the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, this has been going on for several years now, especially since 2019, 2020. You know, they printed all that money and then they just stopped producing oil. And this is, in my mind, this is definitely a rigged situation, Joe. I can't believe that all these countries would all at once just want to stop producing. You know, they know what's getting ready to go on. You look at the preparations for this market meltdown that's going to happen. They've been preparing for this for, I think, a long time. I think maybe even decades, but definitely since the '08 crash. And then in more closer times, just the last few years and bunch of months, they're getting ready for this. And why would they all just stop producing? Somebody out there would be like, hey, this is our chance. We can sell a whole lot more. We got a whole bunch sitting here. Let's just move it out. Somebody would do that in a normal business cycle. But everybody just wants to tune it down. Oh, there's an attack in Russia. We can't export here, and there's a pipeline that went down. And Joe Biden doesn't want to, drill anything, and he wants to get rid of all the excess. It's kind of ridiculous, Joe.
Well, everybody was expecting Saudi Arabia to up production in October. In other words, the million-barrel cut was supposed to be temporary, supposed to go back up in October. They said no. The market said they were surprised by the news. Here's the thing. I'm going to tell you right now. This is the honest to God what's happening out there. Who would know first about what was happening with the economies of the world? Who's first to know? And the answer is the energy companies. They're first. Yeah. They know before everybody else. And what Saudi Arabia is saying, because listen, Brent crude, which is what Saudi sells, it's $90 a barrel. Believe me, the Saudis will sell every barrel they can at $90 a barrel. But here's what Saudi Arabia is saying. Hey, the demand keeps getting weaker. So guess what? We're in front of it this time. And we're just going to keep cutting production because, once again, this fantasy. And again, they've got, here's the best part. They know with Joe Biden as president, we're not going to pump more oil. They know it. Used to be, at 90, think about it, NYMEX crude today, $87 a barrel. You know how many oil producers in the United States right now say, man, can we make a bunch of money at $87? Heck yeah, we can. Let's pump the living daylights out of it. That's not happening now. Now they're like, well, oh well. You know what? Good for us. We're making a bunch of money on what we're selling, but we're not producing anymore. And it used to be the Saudis knew oil gets too expensive. The American producers will kick up production. And they'll sell the oil less than us. So they would have to, keep the oil supply. Jason, that threat's gone now. They know, hey, they're not going to pump anymore, so why should we?
Well, and kind of gives you the feeling that when Biden goes over there and meets with them, and they don't really tell you the results of what's going on, that you might have Biden saying, would you pretty please keep using treasuries, and we'll just stop pumping oil. Doesn't it get you a feeling, Joe? They got to beg for people to use treasuries. I mean, I guess it was official. I saw I was watching. I think it was yesterday. U.S. Treasuries, first time in the entire 250-year history of our country, down 3 years in a row. Nobody wants U.S. Treasuries, Joe. So why do I get the feeling we're not producing oil so that we can beg countries to continue to use this bad debt?
Yeah, that's another one of these things when you really think about it. People now, $100 a barrel oil, people start talking about that again. And to Jason's point, talking about treasuries down 3 years in a row. In other words, the yields have risen 3 straight years in a row. Of course, after 15 years of zero, is anybody surprised? Here's what history's going to say. Wow, what a bunch of idiotic economic policies these bankers were using. What were these bankers thinking? That's what they're going. That's what history will not be kind. And then think about what's coming next year, because this was out of Newsmax. The federal budget deficit is projected to double this year from last year. So we've got, like I said, September's the last month of the fiscal year. According to Newsmax, the fiscal federal year, which ends this month, has already run up $2.2 trillion of debt. Now, last year it was 1.4. And a doubling from last year was projected by the Committee for what they call Responsible Federal Budget. Listen, anytime you're running, now that would be $2.8 trillion. I don't think the official number is going to be that number. Matter of fact, I don't know if the official number is going to be $2.2 trillion, but it's going to be very, very close. And this will be an all-time record-high budget deficit without the COVID emergency. Right? So, you had the 1 year Trump got over $3 trillion, right? That was COVID. Remember, the government was paying you more money not to go to work and all this other nonsense. But here's the problem. Jason, next year, which starts in October, is going to be very, very close to taking out the all-time record-high budget deficit. This is why I said, think about what's happening right now with inflation. Why is it so bad? Well, we had idiotic bank policy, right? That's number one. Number two, look at what we're doing. Spending 2.whatever trillion, right? 2.4, 2.6, 2.8, whatever the number is going to be, trillion, more than we're taking in. Jason, what people got to understand, it's the creation of debt that drives inflation, right? Every time we spend more than we take in, every time we want to print more money, that's going to cost the value of things to go down, right? Just ask any farmer. You produce too much of anything. You produce too much corn, too much soybeans, too many apples, too many oranges, right? What happens? The price goes way down, right? In other words, I get less and less for my stuff, and that's what's happening to the dollar. The government, these guys, they've lost all sense of realities, and again, this is going to be very, very ugly because they're talking about tax receipts down about 8%. Well, spending has been up over double digits. Jason, you're talking about between taxes and spending about a 20% increase.
Yeah, there's
in
like
1 year.
four
That's 1
things.
year.
There's like four things the government can try to do to make its budget better, and all four of these are wrong. They're spending more, they're earning less, their tax receipts are coming in less, they're borrowing more, and they're borrowing at higher rates. So all four of those things are happening at once. This people really don't understand how bad it is, Joe. It is that bad that, I mean, if they could borrow at lower rates, that would help the situation quite a bit. If they could borrow less, that would help the situation. If they could bring in more taxes, that would help. And if they'd spend less, any one of those things, if it would turn around, would at least slow their problem. The thing is speeding up. It's been going slow, Joe. We've been talking about a slow crash. But as all four of these things get worsened, because all four of these things aren't just bad, they're continually getting worse. They're spending more, they're earning less, they're borrowing more, and the rates are going up. I mean, that's why they're praying for the rates to stop, Joe, because all four of these things are going backwards on them.
Yeah, this is something where this is not a good situation. Matter of fact, according to Newsmax, spending up 16%. Taxes down 7%. It's almost 25%. And, of course, the doubling of the national debt in a single year, that would signify, if you were just to look at national debt, you would look at that and say, oh, man, something bad must have happened. What happened? Something bad must have happened in 2023. Man, what went on that they had to double the national debt? And this is the problem. The bad stuff didn't even happen yet. right? I mean, think about what we're facing, 2024, 2025. There's no doubt in my mind we're going to be running national debt. Forget about $3 trillion.
Yep.
$3 trillion would look
Yep.
good, right? $4 and $5 trillion a year. And to Jason's point, how did it blow up so fast? You know, in 2007, when Lehman went under, what was the national debt? 7-8 trillion?
Yep.
7 or 8 trillion? Right? We're at 33 plus the Fed's balance sheet. Let's not forget. So we're at 41 trillion. When you go back to 07 with the Fed's balance sheet, maybe we're at 8 trillion. And now we're at 41 trillion. And we're talking about adding $3, $4, and $5 trillion a year. Well, guess what? We are able to borrow the first, $33 trillion at super low interest rates because they had it at zero. And now, well, I guess it's time to pay for all that borrowing, which unfortunately just means higher debt.
At Life Choices, we are
800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour, Joe and Jason on this Tuesday. Have you figured it out yet? You know what? Tell you what. Pull your head out for just a minute. For all of you non-believers out there, for all of you that think, oh, no, this is going to be just fine. Right? No, nothing bad's going to happen. I mean, come on, the Dow's still 34,000. Everything's great. Yeah, I know everything's really expensive, but, gas just hit the highest of the year. Oil today, the highest in 2023 and going higher. You think it was by accident that bricks more than doubled in size a few weeks ago? I think that was an accident. Why do you think that happened? Why do you think there's 40 more countries that want to sign up? Why do you think Japan, China, pretty much every, with the exception of a few, every one of these countries is selling treasuries? And as earnings come down, now I know, they beat the street. I got it. Okay. I want you to look at the actual number. Did they actually make more money this year than last year? Here's the funny part. For the vast majority of companies, with the exception of a very, very, very few, the answer is no. They didn't. Things are getting worse. Companies don't leave hundreds of millions and billions of dollars in the bank. What do they do with it? They buy short-term treasuries. That's what they do. Well, if they make less money, they're buying less treasury. All these BRIC nations, they're buying less treasuries. Now they want to buy even less. Hey, I don't want to get dollars. Well, why not? Why don't they want dollars to buy their oil? Who cares? Well, let's look at it. 2 years ago, I bought a 2-year note. I got 1%. Inflation's running at, 50. By the way, the yield on the 2-year note went from 1 to 5. Now when I got to buy another 2-year note, I've lost another 4% on top of the inflation. How often do you think, how long would you sit there? Now, some of you sit there a long time. But the vast majority of people, if you start taking losses year after year after year, as Jason said, we're in year 3 of 3 straight years of losses. How much longer are you going to sit there and do nothing?
I think the oil crisis or the energy crisis is because of these situations with the bonds, Joe. I mean, in close to where I live, there's the exit 240 on I-25. There's a little bit of a gas war going on there because the quick trip came in, and so they've been really lowering the gas prices there, lower than anywhere else. And in between the other gas stations, they have to compete right there next to it. The people are going there to get gas, Joe, because it's the cheapest in the area. Sometimes by quite a bit. So sometimes you can see, and this has been going on and going on and going on. Friday night, I had to drive through there to go into Longmont, and I had to come back. At 8:40 at night, gas lines. Joe, I need to take pictures of this and so we can post these gas lines. 8:40 at night on a Friday, gas lines coming out of the. I mean, this is a big area. This is a big truck stop area. I mean, Phillips 66 had the lower price, so they're competing in the area, right? Yeah, you know, when I came back, it was coming back home, 10 o'clock at night. Still gas lines, 10 o'clock at night on a Friday. People waiting in line to get the cheap gas. And I don't think this is not the most expensive the gas is going to get this year. I think gas prices are going up. I feel fearful to have to drive through that underpass to get into Longmont now, because that kind of traffic mess is going to go on for people to get 20 cents per gallon less than up the road, or 50 cents a gallon less than further down into Denver. And Joe, if people are willing to spend that much time in line to save essentially $3 or $4 for a tank of gas, holy cow, what's it going to be when it gets more expensive? And it's really starting to feel like, hey, America, you're not going to be producing any oil anymore. If you want us to use this crap debt, we're going to sell it off anyways. But if you don't want us to dump it and destroy it, you better stop pumping oil. We want to make a lot of money right now. That's what it feels like is happening. Russia and Saudi Arabia, these countries can make a lot of money, Joe.
It's something where, though, I think it tells you it's indicative of the economy. Because when things are really, really good, right, when you're, hey, man, I'm not sitting there in line to get gas. I'm not doing that. I'm not, you know what, I'm going to go across the street. I got to pay my extra 10 cents a gallon, 15 cents a gallon, whatever it is. I'm definitely, and of course, what does this also say? People are making a special trip, right? Hey, I know I'm going to be in that area. I need to go and get gas there because, like you said, hey, I've got to gas up every week. My wife's got to gas up every week. Yeah, I know I'm only saving $3 or $4, but my wife's saving $3 or $4, and then we're saving $3 or $4 a piece. Okay, now we're saving $6, $8 a week. Well, we got to do that every 4 times a month, right? Hey, next thing you know, I'm saving I got an extra $30 because guess what? When I go to the store to buy food, it costs me an extra $30 to get the same amount of food.
Right, and that's where I go to. Time is equal to money, Joe. Which is, so they're making under your circumstance 8 trips per month to the gas station, and let's just say they earn $20 an hour. They're saving an hour and a half worth of wages, but how much time are they spending on their 8 trips to this mess over there at Del Camino truck stop? I mean, but here's the thing: sometimes you got extra time. It's like, well, saving a few dollars, that's worth the time, because otherwise I'd be sitting at home doing nothing. At least here I'm saving $5. And I get it. I used to be a penny pitcher. I get it. The harder your economic situation is, the more sacrifices you have to make. But I find it interesting, Joe, because I don't think things are bad like they're going to get. I can't imagine what those gas lines are going to be like. From everything I see, gas prices $90 to $100 a barrel by the end of the year is like a certainty if things are going okay. It could be $110 a barrel by Christmas, and it's supposed to be slowing down. What happens? What happens by next summer? Remember what we mentioned, this debt, this 33 trillion plus, wherever we're going to be hitting. Half of this debt is maturing in less than 2 years to higher rates, which makes everything even worse. It's all happening right now in the next less than 2 years, Joe.
Patriot Radio News Hour. How much is your portfolio weigh? Because I'm going to tell you right now, if you've got it all in fiat money, it's going to be a bumpy ride. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be right back. 800-951-0592. Joe and Jason, Patriot Radio News Hour. We've had some profit taking in silver. It started yesterday. Well, with our markets were closed. We had some follow through today. Right now, silver $23.65. Great opportunity to take advantage of these lower prices. Silver Eagle premiums rose back up a little bit last week. The junk silver, the utility silver, that hasn't happened as of yet. A great opportunity. Silver half dollar, $220 a roll. If you buy 10 rolls or more, $215 a roll at 800-951-0592. Keep adding here. Again, I think oil prices, this is another one of these things, Jason. This thing is going to end badly because inflation hasn't gone away. Christopher Wallen was right. We've been fooled. Well, he says they were fooled twice. Oh, we were fooled twice by inflation. Now, I don't think you were fooled at all. You were a fool if you actually thought it wasn't happening. But now the problem is just interest on the debt alone. See, all that free borrowing we did. How did we add $33 trillion to the national debt? Do the math. In 15 years, add $33 trillion. That's more than $2 trillion a year. And yet, this budget deficit this year, we what? Only the third time they said the debt was more than $2 trillion. Obviously, they lied. That's a lie. But now, guess what? Not only did they do all that borrowing, see, they're sneaky SOBs. See, they tried to pretend, they wanted you to pretend it wasn't happening. They did. And they knew if we can control the 10-year note, right, we can keep things like mortgages from getting more expensive, auto loans from getting more expensive, right, credit cards from getting more expensive. So they started adding all that debt that they added. They overwhelmingly weighted it to sell very short-dated securities. 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, right? Year, 2-year notes, 3-year notes, 5-year notes. Loaded it up on the low end. Fast forward to today. Now they've got a problem. Because every month, so much debt has to be re-rolled over that they're now having a problem. And so now they're being forced, okay, can't load up on the short end anymore. We got to sell a lot more of the long stuff. Which means rates are going to go even higher. So what does that mean? That means our funding for the national debt is exploding. Next year, which starts in less than 30 days, starts October 1st. Fiscal next year starts October 1st. We will spend over $1 trillion in interest payments just on the debt alone. We will rival what we're spending on Social Security in interest payments. Right? We will surpass the military budget on interest payments. And Jason, here's the sad part. We're going to be adding $3, $4, and $5 trillion a year on top of that. Rates are never going to be what they were.
Yeah, well, unless they try to kick the can down the road, I guess another 18 months or something by crashing the markets hard and maybe really quickly dipping down to 0%, trading all that 0% debt and then buy a whole bunch more 0% debt, maybe a little more than just 2 years, try to get some, and then I could see the 0% or 1% that they take it down to in a market mayhem, suddenly turn around, boom, the rates go right back up. Because if they do try it again, Joe, to try to push down the road, they can drop the rates, reborrow all the money, and then boom, kick it back up, kick the rates back up, and it'll be what we just experienced, elevated much faster and much more severe.
Are you talking about we're going to drop rates while inflation's still going? Right? I mean,
I can see them do that. Yeah.
These are the types of economic suicide that. Well, again, why do you think all these countries don't want to buy treasuries anymore? Why do you think they're like, let's do something other than dollars? Because I'll say this: that's an option.
A borrowing binge.
It's an option. You can't rule that out.
A really fast borrowing binge to save some of their richest buddies, right, Joe? And then immediately back up to 5%. You know, it's very possible. You know, they're really trying to crash this thing hard. You know, and what really happens is it's musical chairs. The people that aren't looking around paying attention, they lose if this thing moves. I mean, if that happened, Joe, I would assume it would move very, very quickly. I mean, look how fast 2020 happened. Here came the boogeyman, showed up in 2020. Everything crashed like crazy. And then the printing binge went out of control. And everybody felt happy for a little while until 2022 showed up, actually 2021 later when all this inflation started coming on the back end of it. So I could see them try it, Joe. I could see them try. I don't know if they'll do it or not, but it's one thing they might try.
Can't rule it out. You can't rule it out. By the way, right on cue, S&P Global, 1,144 national and regional bank closures. These are branch closures. That was only from January to July of this year. 1,150 branch closures and counting in 7 months? Yeah. You think there's a problem? Are you paying attention? Are you figuring it out yet? $800-951-0592. The sale today on rolls of silver half dollars, pre-1965 silver half dollars. They're a $10 face value roll. That means you get 20 half dollars in the roll. 1 through 9 at $220. Jason, 10 or more at $215 a roll, $215 a roll. You're buying half dollars. You buy 10 or more, you're buying half dollars for the same price as you can buy dimes and quarters. And there's always a premium when you're talking about buying half dollars because they're the more desirable coin, and they just made less of them because, believe it or not, I know it's hard for people to believe, but in 1915, 1925, 1935, 1945, 50 cents was a lot of money. 50 cents was a lot of money. Right? You can take your family of 4 to McDonald's and buy 4 meals for 50 cents. Right? Think about it now. I mean, guys, you can't even, I don't even know. I don't even want to know. I mean, what would be a hamburger, fries, and a soda? What, $10? It used to be 50 cents, not $10. I mean, I'm probably underestimating at $10.
I think it's the good old days, the dollar menu, right? I don't go to fast food places, but I know that they try to have something there that's considered a dollar menu. I don't know, but I'm guessing there's what is it, like 3 French fries or something for the dollar menu.
I don't know.
But I don't eat. I remember that was it Taco Bell used to have the 49-cent items or whatever it was. I remember I don't even know if you had this in Arizona, but we had this burger chain, the 29-cent hamburger stand back in the 80s. They still, maybe the early 90s, they had the 30, and it would be the 39-cent hamburger stand, the 49-cent hamburger stand, the 59-cent hamburger stand. As the prices went up, they changed the title of the company, but none of that stuff exists anymore. People don't even want to talk about pocket change. I literally see children throw coins on the ground and walk away from them.
Yeah, I remember, you had $2, like when I was in high school. $2, you could go to Burger King. You needed now. Granted, it was a special, but they were running three burgers for $1. right? So you did $2 and like 6.16 cents. Got to pay the tax, right? 2.16. You get 6 hamburgers. Today, they're like I don't even know, almost $2 a piece.
Yeah, I remember RoboCop from the 1980s. They had all that. They had all that the funny stuff going on the TV, and they had the guy on the TV. I'd buy that for $1. Remember that? what would he be saying now? I'd buy that for $100.
Right? Yeah.
Well, no way. You ain't get much for $1 nowadays.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
800-951-0592. By the way, crude oil surging higher now, $88, up $2.50. Brent crude, $91. As Saudi Arabia says no more oil coming between now and the end of the year. Silver half-dollar rolls, 20 silver half-dollars, $220. Buy 10 or more at $215. You're buying $half for the same price as dimes and quarters. Take advantage. 800-951-0592. Jason and I, we're coming right back.